Oh yeah.
Okay, ready to go. Before we officially start, I would ask everyone when you do speak, please speak up. So Ronnie and of course the microphones can pick you up. And please state your name and organization, if you wouldn't mind, so that we can keep everything on the record. So thank you. It is 1:03 a.m. Calling this PM.
Last call.
I haven't recovered from the heat.
It was there, I had to take it.
I wish I could say that was a test, but it wasn't. Okay, anyway, calling this meeting to order, attending our commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. We are continuing our fiscal 2020 budget review. This is session number 3 with our sheriff. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Moving on, fiscal year 2020 budget review, and I guess I'll let Dina lead us off once again.
Thank you, Commissioner Filios. Welcome, everyone. Our third installment of the Sheriff's Budget meetings. We made some great progress yesterday, so I wanted to show you the fruits of your labors. So all the changes thus far have been put in. You're at 8.2. So, way to go. That's over $1 million in one day. That's impressive.
Thank you.
So, moving right along with all this great momentum. The first thing we want to talk about, we have some guests here today to talk about soft code. So, we wanted to have the district court and our auditors representatives who work in Odyssey extensively to comment on soft code and Tyler in general to give you a greater picture, a little more color. We also have representatives from IT to talk about what the server requirements are for this solution. So I will hand it off to we want to start with IT?
Excuse me, Sheriff Wolfinger, you...
No, that's fine, Commissioner. Let's go ahead and do the soft code, but after that, we'd like to go back to capital because Sean has some input he'd like to be able to provide you, and we want to get this thing up front so he can get out of here.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
fair.
okay, well, we can
No,
start with
I'm
that
staying
if
for
you
the
want.
whole meeting.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, okay.
Whatever works for you.
Carry on, Dina. Who's up?
All right, so would one of our IT reps like to talk about server requirements for soft code?
So, I'm Dave Vaughn from Kootenai County IT at the Sheriff's Office specifically.
Okay.
The soft code project was kind of brought to us as a last minute project, and unfortunately we weren't partnered early enough to take some of our, to plan some of the infrastructure stuff that we need to add the additional server or applications to it. As a result, we're looking at having to expand out our, prematurely, our infrastructure so that it would accommodate this as well as other future projects as well. In doing that, we're looking at adding another VM host server for approximately $33,000, some VMware licensing, Microsoft licensing for data center, and some SQL Server licensing, which is coming to a total of about $51,000 approximately.
Okay.
Was there a provision put into the budget around 60,000 was the number that was put in for technology? Do you know?
I don't have that right in front of me.
It was started at 139,000 and it went up to 200,000, right, Captain Smart?
The total project.
Looking at my sheet here.
216 is that. the master capital schedule, and we'll have the forms in there.
So we had put in, Kevin Smart for the record, Commissioners, we had put in for a budgeted request of $199,220. And so I believe believe Val might be correct, that the original program part was budgeted at $140,000. And so we were adding an additional 50 based on, Dave just said 51. I
Almost.
think we had talked about 50 in our original meeting with IT for the server classes.
We're almost at 60.
Okay.
And it was 139,220. That's Simmons from the sheriff's office at IT. It was 139,220 and you added 60,000.
Yes, and it was just pointing out to me, yes, on my sheet here, it does say soft code program purchase price of $139, computer hardware cost of $60.
And Commissioners, Grant Kinsey for the record. So just some background on where these costs come from, because there's been some comment from the vendor, I guess, to some folks about some potential that it should be lower. The reason for that is if the vendor were building their system exclusively without any other type of system, they probably could come in a bit lower. What's going on here is we're talking about a new system in an existing infrastructure. So the best analogy I could give you is if we had, say this building for instance, which is bursting at the seams with people, if we had a department coming in that needed 10 people, we would not build a building for 10 people next to this building. We would build a building that would hold 100 people or some random number, so that we knew we had what we need to move forward if we're going to already invest that type of costs into infrastructure. Normally the way a project like this would happen is if we were approached earlier in the budget year before our budgets were already submitted, we would probably be bringing a lot of these costs into the IT budget, probably about, what do we say, at least $30,000 or maybe $40,000 of this cost into the IT budget to say, okay, we know we've got these projects coming along, we need to bolster the overall infrastructure, and then the project would be probably taxed, it'd be a lot more in the realm of what the vendor's saying, but we didn't have any of those type of projects that were going to cause the infrastructure to need expansion yet. We were planning on doing that another fiscal year down the road. Since this project kind of puts it into that phase where the current infrastructure needs that expansion, that's why these costs are higher than what the vendor might be saying as a standalone implementation might be needed. So one way to look at it is, if it's all coming from general fund, which I'm assuming it might be, I don't want to put words in your mouth, it's going to be bought at one point or another anyway. So it might behoove us to do that investment now versus trying to take a step back, invest in a bunch of piecemeal standalone systems that are effectively going to get thrown away in short order when the next augmentation of the system needs to happen anyway.
Timing wise, if this were approved for 2020, what would your timing be?
I think we could get the infrastructure together despite our other projects. What we don't have time for is the management of the system. This would have to be, I'm sure that's probably, I haven't been
It's
at any
been
meetings.
noted.
I'm sure that's been talked about.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so infrastructure wise, I'm speaking for Dave at this point, but what do you think?
I think it's doable.
So you guys are confident?
Yeah, and about,
Yes.
I'm going to be speaking out of turn again, not being involved, but as IT, we truly believe this is a needed system. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn there. We have certain systems that are trying to provide it right now that isn't getting it done. So we want to do everything we can to make it happen. We're just trying to give explanation as to why the costs are where they are. But if the costs could be facilitated, that is our recommendation on how to proceed in 2020, would be to do these costs so that it can happen correctly.
So are you comfortable that the system's reliable, that it's stable, that it's ready for our implementation?
Not without the purchases we've just talked about.
Okay, so once again, what's the total tab?
We're looking at just over $50,000 worth of.
For the infrastructure.
In
I-
addition
total
to, in
tab is
addition to the 200?
I think, is that
No.
included in the
It's in the
216,000?
It is in there,
Yes.
okay,
Yes, and
all right, I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page.
It is.
I would have to do some checking again, but that
Pretty
added
sure.
16,000 there to get us at 216.
Yes.
I believe somebody added in a maintenance fee that would not be for this year, it would be the following year. This year alone is 199 or 200. The 16 is the continued maintenance down the road, but that maintenance would not be for this year.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so
But
this
the-
would be reduced.
But the 199 does include
Yes,
the
it does
additional
include
for IT
Yes.
infrastructure.
Okay.
Commissioner, can I just ask one question?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Is, just to be clear here, when we're talking about what we think is ready and doable and everything and is solid, is the infrastructure that we're recommending for this project. You know, as far as the actual application stuff, I mean, we just don't have enough knowledge on that directly ourselves, but the supporting hardware and infrastructure that we're recommending is, and it's already proven within things that have been already installed.
And it meets the software guidelines that they gave us.
Have any of you, and specifically within IT, been in contact with Ada County?
No.
Kevin, you have?
well, just in the application of the program itself, nothing
Right,
to do with IT.
Okay.
What we can, Grant Kinsey for the record, what we can speak to is that, as Dina was saying, the manufacturer of the system is already implemented throughout the county. They've designed our financial system, our HR system, and our court system. So there's some folks here who can speak to their experiences with the system, which I believe are positive. Maybe not, I don't know, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I think that's what you were saying, Dina, is some people we're going to speak to Tyler
Yes, and
as
what's-
a company.
Tyler versus Tyler acquisition versus Tyler development.
Oh, okay.
So there may or may not be a way to integrate that. That question still hasn't been answered, but that's why we brought our court folks in. What I'm hearing is that the infrastructure could be built to build this, to implement this solution, but you would have to build the infrastructure first, and then IT would be able to build the
Right,
infrastructure
right.
next year, but maybe not be able to do a full implementation. Is that what I'm hearing?
We could implement it as soon
Okay.
as we get the infrastructure in.
But I
Okay,
think the
so you do
ongoing
have
support.
time.
With the vendor help.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will then, if IT is comfortable, then I would defer to our district court folks to speak about
Tyler?
Odyssey, Tyler, and some of these folks were in the meetings with the soft code rep and can speak to their side of things.
Okay, let's hear it.
Callie Young from District Court. I did attend that webinar, and I did follow up with Ada County as well as their sheriff's office. So they do have what is called soft code down there. It's TriTech, is what they named it. It solely is just a standalone program for their sheriff's department. It is not integrated at all with Ada County court system at all. So what I understand is it possibly could, but then you're gonna have more cost to have Tyler Technology basically build that integrative system, work with IT to be able to have that mesh with the courts. Right now, it is just strictly a standalone to upgrade the sheriff's office's programs down there. So it does not include court.
Okay, and are they satisfied?
It seemed to be pretty positive. They said they've been working with it for almost a year now, so they're still kind of working through some glitches. But they said overall, it was a good move for their sheriff's office. So right now, it's not affecting their courts, but should it become an integrated system, there would be more duties on the district court side for our clerks.
Okay, so what is up? Go right ahead.
I spoke to Soft Code this morning, and they've assured me that if we ever got to an integration part of Odyssey and Soft Code talking together, that there would be changes to the format and the way that district court does things, but that they would ensure that they came here and bridged that gap so it's not adding extra duties. It might just be a procedural change on how they talk together to get that to fit.
Understood.
And again, we never brought this in saying that we have to match with district court right now. It's just a program that can in our future.
And I'm
And
fine.
even Soft Code said, probably up front, let's get integrated with civil, get that all ironed out, and down the road, we can certainly look at bridging those gaps. Everything is in place from both sides to bridge those. We don't have to.
Got it. I think I'm fine with what we've heard thus far. Leslie? Bill, you want to keep it in?
For now.
Did you want any other input from the auditor?
Oh, sure. Yeah, sorry.
So,
I'm sorry,
Melissa
go ahead.
Merrifield, Auditor's Office for the record. So as far as the financial aspect of it goes, it will significantly help them. Their
The what?
workload, it'll help them with the financial aspect. There's a lot more reports available right now. It's very hard to get data out of Spillman on like overall how much money is supposed to be in the trust account. There's some timing issues right now because they're going between Spillman and QuickBooks. They're using two different softwares right now to integrate it. So as far as the financial aspect goes, I believe it will help them significantly. With regards to the integration with Odyssey, I think the one side of it will allow them to pull information in from Odyssey, which I think will significantly cut down their data entry time. So I think that part of the integration I think will work well. I think it's just the other side of it of pushing the documents from civil back to district court, which is where the issue is right now of us not having enough information on how that integration part will work. But I think the other way around from Odyssey to civil will help. And Kevin, does that amount have the integration in
It does not have the integration costs for that part, because again, we were just bringing it to alleviate the biggest burdens on the civil office at this time, with the hope that we would eventually bridge that together to be able to make it easier on all ends as we communicate back and forth through this software.
Yeah, I think the system will help with the financials of being able to actually audit the records. Right now it is very difficult. They have some issues that I actually have to go up and look at next week to make sure that the numbers are right, because they're having to do a lot of manual calculations right now with the systems that they have. So I think on that aspect, software will help.
Okay. Appreciate it. We okay for now?
Yep.
Okay, let's leave it in. Let's move on.
Okay. We move over to capital, since Sean is here. So we had a question on a roof for 911.
Thank you.
Okay, so with regards to the roof, that request came in a little bit late to me. Honestly, didn't feel like redoing my budget book for about the sixth time. But also at the same time, I wasn't sure if restricted funds could be used for the roof. So I just told them to put it in their budget, and then we could sit down in the meeting and talk about it. So that's, I have the quote. I believe it's a metal roof, correct?
I'm afraid you got me on that.
It sounds like it's
I've
a
never been on the roof. Yes, I'll look at it.
It sounds like it's a metal roof, and it's, let me look at it. It's a 40-year warranty, so the paint and the roofing, so it's gotta be metal. They're gonna tear it off, put it back, so,
Real fast, when I ask you, Sean, on that, is that going to create a noise during weather-related incidents, like rain and stuff like that? Because there's not a metal one on there right now. if
no.
that's the case.
The reason I'm saying that is it says supply 16-inch with tough bond paint system. That tells me it's a metal roof. I don't know if you guys would want that. It will make noise on a heavy rain.
That's a problem.
Right.
I guess our interpretation was fix the roof, whatever it is, looks like right now is what we would be looking
Well,
at.
that would be asphalt shingle. But this looks to me, just reading it, and I've never, this company's out of Spokane, I've never heard of them. I just got it right before the meeting. But usually don't paint shingles, so I'm guessing it's a metal roof. And it doesn't mention anything in here about gutters either, which the gutters have to come off before you can put the new roof on. So,
It'll be replaced then.
yeah, so you add another $3,000 or $4,000 to that for the gutters. But I would have gotten a couple of quotes, and if it is metal roof and that doesn't work for you, then it's probably not gonna happen.
Do we need to do it this year?
We've had some leakage problems.
The only leakage problem that they had was not related to the roof, actually. It was related to a heat pump issue that wasn't cleaned out. So to the best of my knowledge, the roof is not leaked. You know, you got some tough decisions to make. I mean, I'm just looking through here with the remodel and all the other capital that was requested. They might be able to make it a year, you know, maybe another, just like everything else. Everything here is getting old. But I just, For me, I would get another quote, and I would have to dive in here and see if that's a metal roof, because Kevin makes a really good point. I didn't think about that. On a good thunderstorm, they're not gonna get
My only concern, obviously, is if we get a leak, the amount of electronics in that facility, and we get water coming down through walls or, you know, in the dispatch room, we could be in a world of hurt.
Yeah, I rather not wait. I'd rather go out and get more quotes, especially if this is for the wrong type of roof.
Okay. I can,
You wanna wait?
I'm good. Get the more quotes, let's look at it.
yeah, let me dive into it a little bit.
All right,
Okay.
let's
And just
move on.
So we can pass it on to you. and Sean,
More
you can figure it out.
information's
Yeah,
always,
I'll-
more information's always better.
I'll get a couple roofers out there. You'll just have to have somebody give them access and have them look at it.
I think we can make that happen.
We'll get somebody out there. I don't even know who to speak about.
Okay,
All right.
What
Next.
else did you have for capital?
So while we're here, I have some other yellow highlighted items.
Go ahead.
There's going to be some 911 remodel reconfiguration sharing items. So did you want to comment on any of those? Because we haven't really approved them, disapproved them.
And the issue there is, yeah, that's for the record, that we're talking about restricted fund versus general fund, is that what we're hung up on there?
Well,
Not-
there's some.
Yeah,
There's
not
some
hung up.
restricted and some non-restricted. This 31 is non-restricted, and they're splitting with the restricted fund here.
Yeah.
So is it 30?
Commissioner, can I speak to that really fast?
yeah, go ahead.
So, you know, the thing that we look about with this is it's going hand in hand with many things we have. We get a remodel project kind of going on, which would enhance the number of stations we have. But that's hand in hand with us doing a computer refresh that IT has already budgeted for, going hand in hand with a phone refresh. And so all these numbers are tied together based on the number of stations that we currently have versus our projected of you approving to authorize the additional stations that we could basically create by the remodel. So that's, and again, it would be one of those, it would allow us to bring in more staffing. If a computer goes down like we do right now, sometimes we run out of space and room, and so we're kind of toying with that. And, you know, it's just projected for our future growth that's gonna be needed as well.
When will the bodies be
Yeah, that's what I'm
asked
wondering.
for?
Well, so we are filling the ones that we have vacant right now. We have 2 in a training program. We got a lateral from California just waiting to sell our house. We have 2 in backgrounds that are pretty well almost all the way through to fill our last 2 spots. Once we get those filled, the request next year would be to come back to ask you for the future growth bodies, which would be 4 personnel to cover one 24-hour cycle for 7 days of the week.
But you would, once you're full staffed, you would maybe reevaluate and make sure you needed those 4 positions?
We still will use these, we will still use these up, and especially if
Separate,
something.
I'm just talking about 2
Yes.
separate things,
Yeah.
so.
With full staffing, we are going to be on the cusp of, there may be 1 vacant station right now at full staffing during the day. But again, if one computer goes down for any sort of time frame, we have to use that one as the backup to pick up, and somebody has to log on and get on that until IT can come down and assess, or Colin steps in a lot of times, but who knows how long that's gonna take where this one needs to be operational.
I'm fine to leave it in for now. Yeah.
Is it down twice? Because there was only 1 remodel project, and you have the $41,000 remodel, and then the 31.
They're tied together where Colin out of the enhanced funds can pick up the split of that. It's 50-50 split between general funds and the enhanced funds.
So it's a $72,000 remodel.
Correct.
Right,
What
keep
was the
going.
number that Corey gave us?
That's not the same thing that we're talking. That's separate. You're talking about the knocking down of the walls and those kinds of things. That is currently underway with the budget that we have that Tom Reed is handling
Tom's
in-house.
working on that now.
Yes, this is about console furniture, additional
Oh.
Yeah.
spaces and those kinds of
Okay,
things.
so this is the
Expansion,
furniture part of
yes.
it that you and I talked about.
Correct, this is
During
more,
remodel
this is
project.
not knocking anything down and construction wise, this is literally reconfiguring the room and adding positions available for us to sit.
Gotcha, I saw remodel on it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
All right. Okay, that's updated. So, moving on to personnel, there was a request yesterday to do a couple different views of personnel. So we had highlighted the top priorities, and we had updated the reduction in the overtime for the jail. This is our total increase. Here is for new positions, if we leave everything, all the asks in, and for position changes. And that includes that reduction there. Go to the second one, same thing, only different. And keep in mind too, I've also added a part-time Marine deputy that's funded 70-30 patrol vessel, your request yesterday, so that's been added in as well.
So it's actually not patrol, it would be shared with school district.
Okay, because we already have one of those in there. So we
Correct.
want two.
Yes,
Okay.
I was hoping to, if we can get a second school on board, a school district on board, that we could
Okay.
use that, because why have one floating, I mean, wouldn't it
Well,
be nice to
we would love
have
to
three
have,
16s?
because the original one is for the Kootenai School District in Harrison, and we'd love to have one up north in Kootenai, in the Lakeland School District, those rural schools in the north part.
And that negotiation, I hope, is happening?
We've had it before, but the previous board turned down the request to fund the 30%. And so they have currently hired part-time security guards,
Okay,
but we could certainly restart those conversations.
sure, but just so we know, this is no general fund dollars, this is Marine, is that 30%?
Marine and school district.
Yep.
Yeah, just
The
like,
Okay.
Kootenai school.
for sure.
Right, that one's definite, but I was hoping to get that second, because when, I mean, why would you have an odd number of Marine deputies? I mean, is that helpful?
No, I agree with you, and we would hopefully be able to work that exact same deal out with the Lakeland School District. We worked out with the Kootenai School District.
Okay, thank
And
you.
Commissioner Duncan,
Yes.
Matt Street for the record. From year to year, it just kind of varies. I mean, they wouldn't be partnered up with, by themselves out there. If we have a new addition to the team, they wouldn't be the odd man out, so to speak. They'd be partnered up with another seasonal Marine deputy or be supplemented by a patrol deputy or something like
Somebody
that.
would just get less hours, essentially, because of the way the shifts would work. I mean, like, right now, if you had 12, then you would have 6 teams, right? 6 teams could go out and work. But if you only have 11, then you don't have 6 teams, you have 5 teams plus.
Well, what we'd probably do is supplement with somebody from patrol
Okay,
or detention under a special deputization for Marines.
right,
So they may have a different partner every day,
right.
but we would make sure we had those teams.
Yeah, and I don't want to get into those weeds, that's fine. I was just
Yeah.
looking at trying to make you guys whole as a Marine unit, because we are having so many concerns on our waterways right now.
And honestly, this would be the best solution, is
Sure.
to do the school district
So-
and Marine split.
Do we have a cutoff then? I mean, can I say if things haven't settled down by July 1st, we'll take that second one out?
Is it gonna get to the school district?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Second school district?
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. If the school district doesn't give us an answer by July 1st, then we just have to put it off till next year.
I would leave it till the budget hearing. Because we got opening those conversations with the school district.
Okay,
And so, yeah, and I know their fiscal year doesn't start till July 1, so maybe a year out, so we'll
gotcha.
have budget for it. Now, if they want to let out for security guards and fund it that way, that's another thing, but we need to discuss that with them. So
Okay,
I think we leave it to the budget hearing,
okay,
because you can always take stuff away. at the
Right,
budget hearing.
right. Okay, and it honestly doesn't affect general dollars, so.
No,
Well, it would until we knew for sure, because that 70% would be covered by patrol until
Oh, I
we
see what
knew
you're saying.
that the school could cover that piece of it.
Okay,
So that's how we have it in the system now, that's why it's 49,826.
okay,
If we knew we had that school funding, that would be reduced by 70%,
okay.
okay?
then the rest would go out the dedicated fund.
So what you're seeing up on the board right now is if we just approve the priorities outlined by the undersheriff yesterday. That is about 256,000 less than granting everything. So did we want to talk about any of these ones that weren't highlighted in green, if they're cuttable, if they're, we want to leave them in? Normally, we have quite a few personnel requests, and those usually, a lot of them don't survive the final cut because there are ongoing expenses. So this is an area where you'll keep coming back to throughout the budget process. So if there's any easy wins on this page, it's a good time to talk about it.
So I have a question for Nancy. Help me understand, if I look at this chart, right, compared to, let's say, the average starting salaries for KCSO versus Spokane, Post Falls, the table that you had compiled, can you reconcile that for me? Are we talking apples and oranges?
We're talking apples and oranges. That's
Okay.
completely separate.
Chris, I'm not quite sure I understood what you just asked.
We're just talking additional bodies right now, we're not talking money at all.
Okay, yeah, I want to make sure that maybe that I'm calibrated correctly, because in this process, and depending on what HR comes back with, we're trying to make the necessary adjustments to make everybody whole. I'm just trying to understand how this fits in with that, if at all. What Nancy's saying is it's apples and oranges.
Because of
Two
the
different
difference in
things.
the pay.
Excuse me?
Because of the differences in the pay.
Yes.
So
No, sorry.
where we left off yesterday on this is we identified through the exercise that we went through with our staff yesterday about what was, absolute, everybody's number one. And then what the board asked is, well, what do you think about the rest of it? And I said, well, give me some time and we can all go back and talk about it.
That's correct.
And we did this morning. So I can speak to this if that's what you
Go
want
right
to
ahead.
do.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
So I'll start with the more complex one and get it out of the way right away. It's about the holiday buyback. Well, when we started looking at this today, we saw that, well, we want to leave the holiday buyback in for the jail, but, it's highlighted there in green, but then in civil, we didn't care. Well, what it boiled down to in my mind is if you're going to give it to one person, you got to give it to everybody.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Just press on that.
Thanks.
It's nice and bright.
Oh, wow.
It's a green one, you can see. Anyway.
Leslie's got that.
Right.
You want purple? You want purple?
So-
We also have red.
So this starts becoming complicated about the holiday buyback. The first thing you gotta ask yourself is, why does it exist? The reason that it exists is because we are a 24/7 operation, and there are people that work on their holidays, there's people that don't work on their holidays, but the operation has to go on. And because of our staffing shortages, and particularly in the jail, and increasingly more now in patrol, people can't take the time off that they banked for a holiday that they had to work. So we started with the holiday buyback program where at the end of the year, typically it was at the end of the year, we would offer them a chance to buy back what holiday time they had on the book, subject to a cap. And there was a difference in the cap has moved around depending on how much money has been there because it's historically been paid out of salary salvage. And that's a problem because what's happened over many years is people have come to expect this at the end of the year. And last year, we didn't have the money in salary salvage, so we were only able to pay 20 hours as opposed to 40. And the end result was we had some unhappy people. A lot of people see that as a perk. That's in the eyes of the beholder, how you look at it. But the bottom line is we felt this morning when we talked that it was sensible to discuss that with the board and say, well, how do you want to go about this? Because one way or the other, we're going to pay the money. If they're going to get paid for the holiday, whether they work it or not, they get paid for 10 or 11 holidays a year. So we're paying for it that way, or we're paying for it through the holiday buyback because they're banking it rather than using it at the time they get it, or getting paid for it at the time they would have accrued it. Are you with me so far?
Keep going.
So here's the bottom line. We need to throw a number in there, in our opinion, to say what are we going to put there for holiday pay. And whether you call it holiday pay, you call it holiday buyback, but it's been coming out of salary salvage and there should be money budgeted for that. in our account. And what I had proposed this morning when I met with the folks I work with is, I would like to see, you know, a dollar amount put into the admin budget, pull this out of the individual divisional budgets and put it into the admin budget to where it can be administered in one place. And so the next question would be is, well, how much money is that? And it ends up being quite a bit of money.
Well, it looks like 125 right now, 125,000.
So, and if I can give a little more historical perspective on this, the 911 holiday buyback came from when 911 was under the Board of Commissioners, and they couldn't staff, and so they paid all the holidays there, and that's continued on. And that check comes in end of the calendar year, not the fiscal year, but the end of the calendar year. So, you know, that is why, part of the reason, you know, when they came back to the sheriff's office, we continued that program, because staffing's always an issue there. But, and I guess this is the way we look at it. If we let somebody have the day off, then we have to backfill those shifts. And usually we backfill those shifts on time and a half.
Yeah.
So we pay it straight time and holiday time, or we pay it time and a half and overtime. But we're gonna pay the money anyway. That's the problem, so.
And we have been.
And we have been. And I was a big advocate this year. I said, look, we can't continue to take this out of salary salvage as we start to fill those empty positions. We don't necessarily have the salary salvage. We need to put it in our budget. And plus, it's a lot more transparent what that money actually pays for.
So when we met this morning, I asked for us to come up with a number. Did you ever get one? Did it? I mean, it's $70,000 at the jail roughly for.
And it was about
the same.
72 for patrol.
So I'm gonna say, just, if I'm gonna look for a placeholder number, I'm gonna look in the $175,000 range.
If it's 140 there and 55.9 at 911, it's 85.
Well, and there's another problem with the 911 thing, and that was a problem, it depends on what side of this argument you're on, but they've historically been paid 80 hours, right, Kevin?
That's correct.
So, you know, there would be an issue for us to deal with relative to whatever cap we put on it department-wide, because where they may have been getting paid, and just being straight up, where they may have been getting paid 80 hours, they may only be able to get paid 40. And so, again, the bottom line here is we're seeking something from the board as a placeholder there. What did you say, Lynn, you thought would be the dollar?
Closer to 200 if they continue at the 80,000.
So right now, it's 125,000, what you've asked for in the 3 different areas.
I don't know yet. I don't, if that's what it said, I agree with you, but then we gotta throw patrol into it, because I don't think patrol was there.
No.
And so that was another 70 grand.
So basically it's 200.
Yeah, 200 grand. There we go.
So what line item are we on here?
There's 3 of them.
Yeah, there's 3
One,
plus.
They want to add a
two,
4th.
three. And what I would, whatever placeholder, well, I guess I have a question for Dina too. Where does holiday pay come from?
Well, and so that's where I was going when I took this
Yeah.
away from you.
Yeah.
So let's take a visit to
holiday
position
period.
budgeting, because it's a really cool place to go. And it's
That's
where all
what's
the cool kids hang out.
That's why we do what we do.
Yes. So in the sheriff's admin, I don't see any holiday buyback here.
Nope.
Okay, control, do we have holiday
Look
buyback?
at the jail.
control?
We have it.
Shouldn't.
Okay, just the jail. Just the jail?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that's the thing, I don't think we've never budgeted for it in the past specifically. It's always come out of salary salvage.
So let's go clear at the end.
That should have,
But it should be budgeted for sure, that's the thing.
isn't it in HR?
No, it is not.
Here it is.
Well, that was my question to Dina.
So there's,
When people get paid for holiday pay in their paycheck, where does that money come from?
Comes out of your pay.
it comes out of your A budget, and it's sitting, because it's sitting in position budgeting. As you can see down here at the bottom, I know this is kind of a grainy looking display, and we probably should have asked IT when they were here, because this is really hard to read. The bottom line here that I have highlighted, holiday buyback is considered a position in the system, so it gets pulled into the A budget. So this is an existing holiday buyback pool that has gross wages and then all the loading associated with it. No medical insurance, obviously, but this is a pool just like overtime is a pool. So in specific existing sheriff's budgets, this holiday buyback pool position exists. And I believe you said you had it in the jail and 911 has it, right? Okay. So
But there's a couple things going on though, Dina, and there's the actual process of the holiday buyback where people say, I want my 40 hours at the end of the year. But there are people, and I would probably use a good example in patrol, for instance, if somebody wants to get paid for the holiday they worked, you know, they get an extra 8 hours in their paycheck. And I know that happens, and I'm wondering, where does that extra $8, I know it comes out of the A budget, but is it from salary salvage that exists?
it's just general salaries.
Okay, so really, we've been operating in this environment without it ever being budgeted. I mean, even just straight holiday time is people that get it paid in their paycheck. So, again, to Ben's point, I think we should just, what makes sense to me is to create a line item or something in the admin budget that's used to pay all holiday time. And then it would come out of that line relative to how people get the holiday time paid to them. If they had 8 hours and they say on my paycheck, you know, I want to get it paid in my paycheck, then it comes out of that line item. If at the end of the year they've got 24 hours of holiday time banked, then it comes out of that line item subject to that dollar amount. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I guess the placeholder that I would say, Dina, is about 200 grand, because we can't keep always taking it out of salary salvage.
Okay, so here's my question back to the sheriff. Now, I'm still learning about the budget system in general. I'm still kind of a novice. But the reason that we put these pools into these departments is because then it's coded in the system when we pull payroll, that it's getting coded to those employees.
Okay.
So if we wanted to put it in a pool in the sheriff's admin budget, then we would probably want to split out that, you know, we can split out the coding within that one line item. What it's gonna do is it's gonna gross up your admin budget,
Yes.
but we can split it out so that when we pull it from payroll, that budget is actually being budgeted in the right spot.
All right, makes sense.
But it would be for everybody then, right? Because all of the employees get the holiday time, whether they take the holiday and get paid, or is that's just straight time figured
I
in?
believe it's straight time. It's not time and a half. It's not
Right, it's just a
calculated
straight
as
time.
time and a half. I'm just
But you don't
saying.
have to plan that 8 hours separately because it fits into a regular 40 hour,
Right.
salary structure wise, it fits into.
Right, but it all flows through those basic salary
Gotcha.
lines,
Right.
just like any other position.
All right.
So are we good with that, commissioners, then? moving
Well,
that?
as long as we're talking about the people who are supposed to, who
Right,
don't have a
we're-
choice about working.
We're not
holidays.
talking, you know, driver's license clerks who
Right.
take the holidays off.
Right.
Obviously, you know, we close driver's license. We're not talking about the administrative staff that take holidays off, you know, on a general basis. We're talking about those deputies that, you know, 911 people that have to work. Or that the holiday falls on their day off, so they earn that holiday as well.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. So a $200,000 placeholder, and the only other comment on that, back to Dina, is that putting it in the admin budget gives us a good chance to know how much money's left there for the people that want to do the holiday buyback at the end of the year. So it works
Okay,
much
so are
better.
we talking 200,000 including what's existing?
Yes.
Including what's
Yeah,
existing?
it's not in addition to.
Okay, so I would change these to all go to the sheriff's admin budget at this time.
Yes.
Well, I mean, if that doesn't cause more of a problem for you.
Well,
And
what
I understand
happened
what they
is-
want why they want to do that, but you're the keeper of the,
Yeah.
It's just, it's a bookkeeping thing, so this is how it works. So all of these new choices, all of these new positions and changes right now are just sitting on one line that live within this org set. This is just kind
Sure.
of accounting
Fair enough.
lingo. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a lump sum amount, basically, and I'm gonna put that in the sheriff's line item, just in his admin budget.
right.
Then when we go to set things up after the budget's adopted, we would create that lump sum in his admin budget, but within that, in our system, we would allocate it to other departments, so that the money's sitting there. The other option would be to leave it all in the admin budget, and then if there was holiday time paid out, then we would have to manually pull it from that pool and manually allocate it into those departments. So you either put the money in the budget as a placeholder, or you have it up in a pool budget and you have to spread it out manually. So we can work through that, we can work through the
Yeah,
details.
that's what I'm saying, I don't think we need to work the logistics.
Right, right.
We can figure out the logistics.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't
Okay.
think that's an issue.
Okay.
And we're gonna offer this once
Yeah,
a year,
yeah.
so it's a once a year issue.
Okay, so we're just gonna do one
And that-
pool and
It's
admin.
easier on payroll on everybody.
All right, so what it'll do is when we look at the sheriff's budget as a whole, there won't be much of a change, but if we look department by department, we'll see some variation year over year because we're moving budgets
Fair
around.
enough, okay.
Okay,
Okay,
It'll be easier for us to keep an eye on it.
the rest of this is easier, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, on the other items that we left, the ones that are in white were the ones we talked about. And this is what we decided this morning, that, you know, what we are willing, or at least what we think is fair, you know, to unload, for lack of a better way of saying it. We've got the whole, everything up there, Dina, come. I meant, that it should start with a personnel technician at the top. There we go. Yeah,
Okay, so, yeah, go ahead.
we're gonna cross off the personnel technician.
okay,
Take it out.
And this is primarily, most of this is in favor of the training coordinator, of what I'm about to tell you. We want to keep the training coordinator, and the background to that is because it touches the whole department, even though it's, you know, under the professional standards section. I mean, they do the training coordination for the jail and for civil and for patrol, so we want to keep the training coordinator.
Plus that position's also a crime prevention position.
The
And that's our
admin,
coordinator for crime prevention.
Keep going.
the admin assistant, we're gonna give that up.
All right.
We're gonna give up the transport deputy. Kind of hard to give up what we didn't already have, I guess. But anyway, and then moving on down, we do want to keep the on-call pay for the detectives. And just a very brief aside there, Coeur d'Alene City pays them $4 an hour. We cut that in half. Our ask is to, Kootenai Health also pays it. And this on-call pay, I'll let Kim speak to it a little bit. She can speak to it better than I can about what it's for. Do you want to?
There are parameters to the person that would be on call, and so basically they need to be within so many miles of the shop, they need to be available and prepared to take a call at any moment and respond. And so we're gonna start this program with one person that would be on call regularly, so we always have that coverage. And looking at what other places do, Coeur d'Alene does a sergeant and 2 detectives that are on call and ready to go, so they're paying that out to a team that can respond at any time. Kootenai Health does it for different teams of people that are on that on-call status, and they pay a different rate for weekdays and weekends. So our original request was to match what what Coeur d'Alene PD does with the $4 an hour. And what we did was present that, it came back to cut it to $2 an hour, so that's what we're
I'm fine with that. Keep
And
going.
it's a fairly low amount, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep going then. We did nix the transport deputy. I don't know if I said that yet or not. I'm getting.
yep. I'll get
Okay.
you that.
It's on the right.
We nixed the detention sergeant conversion.
Down.
This one right here.
Yeah,
And so where it talks about overtime there, we talked about that. That is necessary overtime in both areas that they've, you know, and it's based on prior experience. It's not a big dollar amount either. So we'd ask to keep that. It's a fairly insignificant amount.
Okay, so which overtime are you at? The
Well, we have
records?
overtime down
Okay,
here. I'm
so
sorry.
that one
down
wasn't
here.
big.
Yeah,
Okay.
the records.
is it this
civil.
one?
No.
Records and civil.
The records, we want to keep that, and we want to keep civil.
But if
Now, that
soft
civil
code
overtime may go away. if
with
it's
soft
Or
code,
be
right.
reduced. Yeah.
But then with the
Reduced.
records overtime, you took away the records new body, right? No?
No, we did not.
No, it's
Okay.
still up there.
Okay, so if you get the records, the new body records, would that overtime go away as well?
It would be impacted by that, yes.
Yeah, so we
As a matter
should
of
make,
fact,
we should then make a reduction in the overtime.
I would go out on a limb to say if you got the body, we could lose the overtime.
Yeah, let's reduce it.
So we wanna reduce this one?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, if we keep the body, then we can dump the overtime.
Reduce to 0,
Yes.
okay?
And then we're left, I think, with the assistant supervisor and driver's license. And Kevin, could you speak to that?
I can, just real fast, can I jump back to the overtime, sir? And we
Absolutely.
had talked about just reducing by half because we can't ever account for FMLA injuries or something popping up that overtime. Reducing it to 0 would hold us under a confines of, hey, you can't, nothing can happen to your office or anything. I think something has to remain in those overtime budgets to account for variances that we won't
No,
know.
that's fair.
This is just an
You know,
increase
across
to your
the board.
existing.
No,
This
that
is not
makes
all your
sense.
overtime, this is just an
Right.
increase. This is reducing the increase to 0.
That's just reducing the
Okay.
increase, Kevin.
All right.
There's
Yeah.
overtime in your budget, this is
Sounds
just an
good.
There you go.
increase.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
So go ahead with the assistant supervisor stuff.
So what we'd be looking at here is trying to help the further convergence of Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene driver's license separation. They really operate as separate entities. Lori McAdams over in Post Falls right now is doing all of the duties that Sandy is at Coeur d'Alene. The daily reconciliations, the daily deposits. Anytime there's coordination with ITT in Boise, she actually has to make those. Sandy just cannot do both offices together. So our request is to create a, basically just up the salary for a supervisor's position in Post Falls, thus then backfilling her current assistant status with a clerk to become an assistant. Not adding any bodies, just changing salaries by that limited amount to account for the duties that they're already doing.
So the net impact of moving those grades would be 20,603.
And there's no backfill to that either.
on that note, let's take a quick 5-minute break, because we're on a 2-hour schedule. It's 1:55, be back at 2, please.
Perfect.
4 PM, resuming our meeting.
What's the
And,
placeholder for the supervisor stuff?
Dina,
Yes.
I'm sorry, do you want to take us where we
Yes.
left off, please?
Absolutely. Captain Smart had a question?
I'm just wondering what the placeholders are on the supervisor's positions, off to the very right-hand side.
I just said, it sounded like it was parity with Coeur d'Alene.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, that's where we left
Gotcha.
off. So are the commissioners supporting this, the raise in grade from a G to a J and a D to a G to fill these positions correctly?
For now.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
You know,
good.
my bigger concern is the staffing overall. I mean, promotions are important, but when we hear some of the horror shows that we hear, I have to wonder about the staffing, so.
Right.
Well, let's just bear that in mind for the moment.
Commissioners, like I said, I think that with the positions we
sorry?
have,
Isn't it computer stuff?
yeah, with the positions we have,
Yeah.
it's much more of an issue, computer stuff. I mean, it's not near as bad as it was a year ago, but it still goes down from time to time. You know, the staff just sits there because they can't do anything, because the state's computers are down. And people get irritated, and I hear those horror stories too. But it's beyond our control at that level. I think that, you know, these are working supervisors, and, you know, we see that every day. And so I think the staff's adequate. Now, I know in the meeting this morning, we talked about in the future, adding positions and adding, you know, exam stations, and maybe even adding another satellite office, you know, down the road, long-term. And I know that'll come out of the study that's going on.
Did you have to shut down any of the offices earlier than usual? Or are you running till 5 o'clock?
Oh, we're running till 5. Actually, I think we run till 5:30, because the state shuts down computers at 6:30 at Boise time to do their upgrades each night. So
So we're actually taking in new applications up until 5 o'clock?
yeah, basically, new people come through the door. If it's just a renewal, we don't allow testing until after 4:30, just because of the time it
well, that
takes
makes sense, yeah.
and things like that. But yeah, we cut it off at 5 o'clock, and that way it allows us to finish up by 5:30 to get people done and out of there.
Okay. The only reason I brought it up, and I realize it might be apples and oranges, but vehicle licensing, I guess, had to shut down, was it Q-list at noon in Post Falls a couple days ago, and it was something like 2 o'clock in Coeur d'Alene. They've never had as much traffic as we have now.
Well, and I can see that with the queue-less system, but not shutting the doors of the office. I mean, if it queues people up for the entire rest of the day, it does. And which is the beauty of that system. Because
Well, no,
if they come
that's
in-
true.
If they come in at noon and they know, hey, I can't get in until 3:30, go do your shopping, go take a nap, whatever you want to do, but come back at 3:30. Well, I think I do it after you take a nap, but come back at 3:30, and then you're second on the list.
Fair
Great.
enough.
You wait 5 minutes, that's great. That's the beauty of that system.
Okay, so we're gonna leave this in for, thank you. We're gonna leave this in for now? Yes, okay, let's go.
Yes. So we had talked about in civil, that the software might reduce the need for overtime. Was
Yes.
there any appetite for reducing this overtime, increase for civil?
You know, we could sit here and debate how much, but why don't we take it down to, what are we showing, total annual impact, 18?
Yeah,
Can we
here's
take
the-
the,
Here's the base figure is 15. So this is
Take it
just the
back to-
loading of that 15.
Take it back to 15 for now.
you wanna take it back to 15 loaded? I mean, it's not a,
That's not huge.
it's not a major savings, but I would go down to 10.
We can always change it,
Yeah,
yes.
let's go down to 10. We've gotta start making some, serious considerations, okay.
Commissioners, can we revisit something you talked about yesterday?
Are we okay here?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, that's okay. Yes, Jim?
Is that loaded figure, Chris? 10K loaded? or-
This is 10K base. It's easier for us if it's a base number.
Yeah, go ahead, go 10K base, that's
Okay.
fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, thanks, Jim.
So, commissioners, when we're done with personnel, I just got a final comment. I don't know if we are. Looks like we're done.
Where are we at, Dina?
Okay, so we wanted to revisit something from yesterday, Under Sheriff?
Yeah, I would.
Oh, Sheriff?
Yeah, and that's the 911 Pulse Point mobile app.
Oh, yes.
And I know it shows cut, but my understanding is it's still open for discussion. You know, this came to us from Kootenai Fire Chief,
Yes.
from Warren Merritt. And I spoke with Warren at the 911, or at the EMS Joint Powers
So
Board
did I
the other
actually,
day.
yeah.
And, you know, I said, is this something we can split with EMS? Because it certainly has an EMS component to it. I mean, it's notify people when somebody's having a heart attack, you know, needs CPR. So is that something we can split with EMS or even be funded by EMS and not out of the county general fund? Because it doesn't qualify under the dedicated fund for 911. So I just want to throw that out there as food for thought. As you guys consider this, you know, that it's certainly proved valuable in other communities, and I'd never heard of it. Like I said, Warren brought it to me, and it sounded like a really good
me
idea.
too. Yeah.
So I just said, yeah, we certainly include it in our budget, but looking at alternative ways of funding that, maybe partially out of the EMS fund, or totally out of the EMS fund. So
Well, I mean, I can take it up at the end of the month.
just a thought.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
just food for
because we
thought.
decided yesterday to nix it, and we did receive an email that it had
A citizen
a
had.
limited application yet. Go ahead,
Yeah, a
Lisa.
citizen had chimed in and said that he had downloaded the app, found it to be cumbersome, not very intuitive, especially for a high-stress situation. For example, one must move the search area quite a distance in order for the app to perform another search. Very few AEDs registered in our area at this time. Many are quite a distance from each other, so it would.
Where did he use this? Because it doesn't function in North Idaho.
I think he was referring to another location.
Because it doesn't function here. We don't have it, so it can't function here.
So-
So I don't know how he could evaluate it here locally.
He downloaded the app, Pulse
Well,
Point, and
that
so.
doesn't help me because you can download all the apps you want.
Yeah, our 911 dispatchers aren't set up for it.
It's not set up,
Right.
so half of this system wouldn't be set up, or half.
And people
Sure.
haven't had the opportunity to
So the learning.
Register.
So what do you,
Right.
did you want to approach EMS and see if they want to include it in?
If you'd like me to come to the EMS board, we can certainly do that.
It was
There's
still,
nothing to lose.
it was still mentioned yesterday, though, that if individuals don't download the app, then it's
Right.
not
That is
going to
true.
be. And so, you know, if you can get it wholly paid for by EMS, fine, but I'm not interested in any general fund dollars at this point.
Bill agrees, so let's go that route.
Okay.
Let's try it.
Well, and can you put me on that agenda then?
Yeah,
Okay.
for the end of this month, for the end of June,
Whenever that meeting is,
Yeah.
somebody will be there to speak to.
absolutely.
Maybe Warren and I both.
Okay, cool. Because
Very good.
Warren usually attends anyway.
Right.
Okay, good. I'll do it.
All right.
Dina, where do we go?
Okay, so are we comfortable with our personnel choices? We have some cuts here, and I can update this and send you an updated schedule with the cuts that you've made.
Leslie, Bill, be okay for now?
Yes, for now.
For now.
Okay.
So, we've got a couple of other things. Did we want to talk about capital anymore? Are we pretty comfortable with this? I did do a quick look. We're still in process looking at this whole buy lease thing. I did plug in the 542 number
Right.
just as a placeholder, but I don't really want to commit to that
No,
number
we
until
can't
we
yet.
have a
Yeah,
chance. But
precisely.
I'm working with Captain Smart and getting a solid number so we can actually do a buy lease comparison and see if it's monetarily a good idea. So.
If I can update you, we had a meeting with Kirk Lauer this morning on that whole lease program. Some of the numbers that he'd been given originally were incorrect, and so he's gonna go back and recalculate that, and also make sure that we're included in the interests that go with those lease programs as well. But I think of 25 vehicles, we were looking at an annual actual cost of about $608,000.
680.
So 608.
Oh,
608.
Yeah, 608 and change.
I was one car off.
Yeah, with the, those are rough numbers, but he was going to go back and put those together and get back with us. But we ended that meeting right at noon, so it's been a process today.
All right.
On that note, though, that Ford Expedition four-wheel drive for the jail, we still left that in there. We were talking about it yesterday, but not my idea, but, when Ben and Kurt, they came up with the idea of perhaps putting that in as a lease vehicle as well, which would cut the,
Yeah, let's do that. To me, I suspect the lease is still gonna come out proving itself, so if not, we can always make the changes, but for now, I'd include it in the lease program.
Well, it'd be about half of what our total cost for the 15 vehicles would be, and the 25 vehicles, plus the jail's expedition, so I mean, we're talking about half of the total amount.
The 542 is how many vehicles? Was it 25?
25, yeah,
It's
but now
actually
it's 608
608.
for 25.
I'm sorry,
It's
608.
608, yeah. which-
Dina, do you just want to do that for, yeah, you did it, never mind.
Yep, I got it right here.
And Kurt will be sending us the updated information as soon as possible. I'm sure Gavin's smart enough.
Yeah, we're running approximately 24,300 per vehicle, so if we wanted to include the Ford Expedition,
Yeah,
you
then we
could
could cut
put that in
from
at
there.
24.3. It's actually 24,320.
Hey,
Just-
Sheriff, do we want to include the truck for Visar in that as well, and get a price on that?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
would say any of your vehicles.
Amen.
So I
Yeah.
think we're gonna do that with ours too, countywide, because we have a few people who are over 200,000 who need stuff, community development, assessor, people need stuff, so we'll look at that.
Do you want us to look at, and I know you cut one of the jail vans out of yesterday. Do you want us to look at both those vans into the lease package?
Well, if you will need one, if you will need a second one in the next 3 years, then yes, because I just want to keep reminding everybody that there are no other
more
vehicles
vehicles for 3
coming
years.
for 3 years.
See, that's my concern with the lease program, is that that won't be enough vehicles to
For 3
fulfill
years?
For 3 years.
Well, that's what you gotta tell us. So,
I mean, it's a great way to pay for it up front.
Is it 75,000 a car, correct? Is that the number?
No.
you're talking
No,
about?
you're lower
No.
than that now, aren't you?
Well,
How
that's a good number just to say that.
If we bought them.
We had put it in this year, that right now, without anything of adjustments for, equipment, increase rates and stuff like that, 73.
So
73,610.
So I did the math. If we took 608 at 75,000, that would get us 8 cars. If we took 608 and did it on the lease buyback, it gives us 25 cars.
You know what?
So I would think
I
that
we're gonna have to make
25
it
cars could make it 3 years.
The 25
Because you're
cars
gonna get
could.
rid of all your
You're
crown
worried
vics,
about
they're
the-
out.
Yeah,
And
but
then
I'm worried
you
about
have-
the other ones.
Well, I know, but you also have a trickle down because not all your cars are going to auction. So now you're gonna be, because like Dan says, charity begins at home first. You're gonna take some cars that might be right around 100 and trickle them down into your B.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying, you could be able to make it work just because you're not trickling down to the rest of the county now. Your charity starts at home. as
Yeah,
Dan
and I
says.
think to your
And
point,
you start trickling down because the B vehicles, they are, depending on where you set your mileage standard, that's 150, 175,000. You're only putting, on a B vehicle, if you're only putting 14 to 18,000 a year, that's 3 years.
Good, make a point.
In my math.
Well, I think we've gone through this. We beat this dead horse at this point.
I just wanted to bring it.
If
Right.
we're gonna
Right
get
now,
you
I don't want to
vehicle-
go backwards because we'll be here till 7 o'clock tonight.
Well, if we're gonna get you the vehicles anywhere near what you want, it's gonna have to be a lease. It's just a question of how much, and we're gonna have to make the necessary adjustments. Right.
25 cars is a big help.
It's a big,
Big help.
It is.
To Ben's point, I think he's right, but
well, it's a legitimate
even if you
concern.
did have to get a couple more cars, it's not gonna be so, I believe, so injurious to a program that we can't figure
Right.
something out.
We'll figure it out as we go forward.
and just doing the math, that's giving you 8 cars a year for the next 3 years if we paid cash.
Yeah.
I mean, if that.
Right,
if
you're
that
getting them
figure-
all, exactly, you're getting them all up front.
Yeah, so
Except you're not
you
getting rid of, well, we're not going to cash.
No, it's fine, it's fine.
And you know what, it's a valid point, the thing is, when we get through pretty much the first year of the program, and we get into next year's budget cycle, fiscal 21, we'll have a better idea, because we will have had some history with it. But I think for now, I think it's clearly the way to go. You're gonna get the vehicles. Okay, Dina,
We would get locked into 3 years though.
that's
Yeah.
okay.
So that placeholder would be in the budget for 3
Yes.
years.
Yep.
So, okay, I still want to do the buy versus
Well,
lease
do it,
comparison.
absolutely.
Yes. just so that you have all the information.
Yep.
So we are working on that. So did you want to cut this expedition?
Yes.
Okay.
Cut it or just include it in the lease program?
Well, it's cut because it would be part of the lease program.
But that does not include the 608.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that would be an additional.
You're gonna add 24, you're gonna have to add 24,200.
No, actually, that
No,
one's
you wouldn't
cheaper.
add
That's,
that
that
much.
one's $30,000 cheaper, so you take a third of it basically, plus 5% interest.
Oh, okay, so add about 10.5?
About 14,000.
Okay.
It's
like an
Okay,
offshoot.
so maybe we should clarify this out
Okay.
after the meeting.
Yeah, I don't see a reason why to go all this stuff until you get your math.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we'll need to contact Kirk to ask him to throw in the jail vans
Yeah.
and the Explorer as well, for the expedition as well, that lease number, so he can give us accurate numbers for that.
So is the board amenable to me marking these for,
Potential
considering
lease.
with the lease, potential lease?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll also look at the search rescue
So here's
vehicle.
that crew cab, same thing.
Yeah. And then the Ford van too.
Yeah.
So who's gonna do Kevin, can you do the legwork on that?
For the jail ones as well?
Yeah,
Yes.
just let's put it.
To make
one
sure he
place.
includes them?
Yes.
Just make sure Kirk includes those in the leasing price from before.
And I can send you a summary, Captain Smart, of
Perfect.
what we've arrived at for today's meeting.
So- I have some questions for the body scanner if we want to revisit that. Is that for every single inmate who comes in, or is that for only the ones who would be subject to further search?
No, that's for everybody.
For every single person? Okay.
I think it's the only way we keep contraband out of the facility. And we get so many people come in and have it secreted anyway.
Are there any statistics, you know, like the feds who use them or whoever uses them, do they have?
I
you
know
like-
that, I can speak anecdotally that Yakima County, when our inmates came back from Yakima County, a large number of them had illegal substances secreted on or in their bodies. Because they didn't have such a thing. They put in a body scanner and it dropped to 0. And I'm talking meth, heroin, marijuana. I thought maybe they sold marijuana in their commissary because it's legal in Washington. But I mean, all that stuff was coming into our jail when we were bringing inmates back. But it dropped virtually to 0 once they put in a body scanner and started scanning everything.
What I heard from Yakima, when they first put it in place, they were finding a lot of drugs, but once word got out on the street that it was there, and they didn't want to get caught with the drugs when they got to jail, they quit trying to get in with it, so.
It's an additional felony, smuggle contraband into jail.
Sure. So, are there other funding mechanisms? For instance, you're not replacing a scanner we already have, so is that forfeiture?
It would be supplanting.
That would be
because it's been asked for in the budget.
But it's not something that you have. I mean, because my understanding is you can add some stuff that as long as
I have
it's
got that kind of
beneficial.
money, drug forfeiture anyway, but that would still be supplanting. We're asking for it in budget, this is the 3rd year in a row we've asked for it in budget, and then by taking it out of, trying to take it out of drug forfeiture would be supplanting our normal budget process.
Yeah.
If we hadn't asked for it in the budget, we could do that. But the bottom line is if you ask for it in the budget and somebody says, no, we'll use the drug forfeiture money, then that's supplanting.
And that's the argument we had with the previous board as well, when we asked for it.
That's what our lawyers are telling us.
That's
Not
what
that
your
we're getting-
lawyers are telling us.
Yeah.
What are my lawyers telling me?
Well, that's what Darren's telling us,
Okay.
so.
Who's your lawyer? We'll talk, I'll have my lawyer get with your lawyer.
Okay, excellent.
I think it's Ferguson's.
Anyway.
2 lawyers, 3 opinions.
So would the board like that to stay in
Yeah,
the budget
we-
for now?
Yeah.
No, let's
Okay.
leave it for now.
All right. Okay. So we've gone over new programs, we're comfortable with that, and our sheriff's going to talk to EMS to see if they would fund it, but officially we're not funding the app.
Correct.
So, okay, thank you for the confirmation. So we just went through capital, we talked about revenue. Operations, we kind of went through yesterday, I think we
We
were
did.
fairly comfortable with that. We
Mhm.
talked about soft code.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a couple little housekeeping items and as well as the vehicles kind of being in process, we also wanted to talk about the Hayden contract just at a very high level. This is something the sheriff has negotiated with the city of Hayden because we do provide some extra patrols for them. So every year they do help us pay for those deputies. So I just took what we had from last year and the sheriff and his staff are still working with the city of Hayden, but I wanted to give you an update just for transparency's sake of where we're at so you can get a feel for this. So the city of Hayden is trying to get a levy approved to help pay more of the costs so that they can increase the amount of police coverage they have. Right now we supply 4 deputies. So right now they're paying us that figure, $285,853 annually. This year they also gave us some extra money to help purchase another car. So that's where we are right now, and it's my understanding that unless they are able to get this levy to go, that that's about all they can afford to give us right now. I'll hand it off to the sheriff, he can comment on it.
Yeah, Hayden has a remarkably low levy rate.
Yeah, they do.
And their total 3% is less than half a deputy. And so, we know, and they have other expenses as well. So, I mean, we know that they can't raise taxes enough without the overriding or levy election. They don't pay for the deputies that are there. And this is the way we wrote the contract. If they have 2 deputy positions that have been there 9 years, they pay at the 9-year rate for a basic deputy. If they have 1 deputy position that's been there 7 years, they pay at the 7-year rate for a 7-year, or the base rate for a 7-year deputy. And if they have a deputy that's been there 2 years, they pay at the 2-year rate for a 2-year deputy. That doesn't mean that's the experience level of the deputies that are there. They may all have 7 years, but they've had those positions that long, and that was the fairest way we could see and the best way to budget for it for both them and us, and how we were able to project the revenue and they can project their expenses, for them. They're basically paying for a replacement deputy so the deputy can be assigned there. And each year that replacement deputy moves up through his matrix, they're paying for those increases, or that's the plan all along. Now, once we, right now we're kind of waiting on HR because there will be some increase in those costs. Whether they're able to absorb those or not, we don't know. But the bottom line is, the sheriff's office has to provide services to the city of Hayden. And whether we like it or not, and it is our highest populated contract city, and it has a higher demand for service than any other contract city because because of Walmart mostly.
Yeah.
We average 1.6 calls a day at Walmart. Regardless, we'd have to go there anyway because it's in the county, and so it's one of those things that. Yeah, we may not have these 4 additional deputies. Now, one of those deputies is split between the city of Hayden and the school district, but that's all handled at the city of Hayden level. And he works as school resource officer in those schools in Hayden. But we would have to still handle all those calls without this money. And so really, I don't want to kill the golden goose here, by asking for something that's over, that they can never afford. Because right now we're bringing in almost $286,000 that we wouldn't have to necessarily see to still provide the service. So it's a benefit for everybody.
So we're looking at a cost of $502 annually, is that correct?
Well,
potentially.
That would be if with new deputies and their equipment.
Is that what they're trying to pass the levy for?
Yeah, they want to eventually gradually move into 8 deputies.
Yes, they want to increase it from 4 to 8.
And they would stair step that in. That's what they're asking for in their levy.
Should we throw that vehicle into the lease as well?
It's already bought.
It's already bought, yeah.
Okay.
But, and I have to say, clear back to when Ron McIntyre was the mayor and now Bill Griffin, they've been awesome to work with. They've been really good about working. And part of that contract is that Hayden deputy, that deputy's working in Hayden, and we get something, a hot call out in the county, he needs to go, he just goes. It's not even a question. Where some contract cities, I know the Ada County and the City of Eagle, those officers are bound to stay in the City of Eagle, unless it's a life or death situation. And so I think we have a really good relationship there that we want to maintain.
Okay.
One of the things we have talked about is, just for historical knowledge, we talked about splitting an additional deputy with the City of Hayden and the City of Dalton, because they're adjacent, and Dalton would like to have some extra enforcement, particularly traffic enforcement. But when the City of Dalton saw the price tag for a half-time deputy, they weren't open to that. So we tried to explain it that way.
So,
Not with a successful recall.
so are we making a choice here? Do we have decisions here? Or what's the
I don't think there was-
additional cost as far as we are adding a new deputy
We're not adding a new deputy until they're,
until
we know,
come forward?
well, until we know their levy passes.
So levy passes.
And the thing about the levy pass, this will be a next budget year issue, because they won't, if the levy passes in November, they won't be able to start collecting taxes till January.
Right.
So next budget year, we'll be coming to you, and they understand, it's 11 months of upfront payment to add a body, because we have to hire,
Yeah.
train, things like that. And that's an 11-month process by the time you get to the academy and everything else. So this is, I think it's probably more for your information that this is where we're at. Once we get some numbers from HR on pay, then we go back to the City of Hayden and working on this current contract to try to get those people up to where they should be. But like I said, I don't want to kill the golden goose and say, hey, look, you got to put out $50,000 more and go, we don't have it. I guess we'll just cancel the contract, because then we lose $286,000. We still provide the services. So.
Okay.
Well, and just for information's sake, we put this together from Odyssey, just to give you an idea of how busy those deputies are. So, these are the citations over the past few years, number of citations. So having that police presence there keeps crime down. Those four guys work really hard. So we just wanted to show that it is a valuable program, and Hayden needs this service.
I can tell you, probably 95% of those misdemeanor citations are all at Walmart.
For what?
All at Walmart. And they're probably all for a petty theft, shoplifting. So. That's why I shop at Walmart hard.
All right. So that, I think that's all I have. Just be sure to hit everything. How are we doing on time?
It's 2:32, we've got 28 minutes.
So, we did look at some overtime stuff, but we
Mhm.
kind of hit the overtime already. Lease versus buy is still in the works, the Hayden contract kind of still in the works.
Yep.
So, if the board doesn't want to talk about anything else, in any of these, categories, then I would say we could go back and do our homework, and then we can give you updates to your summaries. And then our next meeting next week,
Go ahead.
we're going to strategize. We'll look at everything we have before us. And then my hope is that we would sit down and we would plan out and strategize the deliberations meetings on how you want to tackle them, who you want to bring back in to talk to, depending upon how you want to target and get through your deficit. So the next meeting we have will be a strategy to tackle that.
Now, when you say the next meeting,
So this is our last elected
the
officials
last
meeting.
EO meeting, okay.
So
Just
all
wanna make
the
sure we're on
next
same page.
meetings, starting on June 6th, are going to be deliberations meetings where we roll up our sleeves and we say, okay, where do we need to cut? Where do we need to move things? What can we do to reduce this
Fair
deficit to
enough.
zero?
When will we know from Rich what the addition to the three,
I
to the, excuse me, the new
updated,
construction component?
I've updated the new growth based on a number provided on the 16th of May.
Uh-huh.
And our new growth is down about $1,600. So the number that we have in here for property taxes is accurate as we can get. We'll have the final property tax number about mid-July, and that's about when we need to balance the budget. So we still have quite a bit of work to do. Hopefully we'll get some goodness. It looks like our values are up quite a bit.
So we're still operating on a 2.7 million.
Yes. Yes. And I have, Ronnie updated your books under the property tax tab. I have the levy sheet with the property tax calculation, and if you have any questions, just feel free to call Michelle or myself, and we can talk you through it.
So we don't get a final on that until what, mid-July?
Mid-July.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, okay. That's fine.
So is there any lingering things that you would like us to put in our homework to look at for you? Any kind of analysis, or do you want to just table that and contact us, reach out to Michelle and I via email? If there's any specifics you want us to focus on, then we can bring analysis as requested to the meetings as they unfold.
Thoughts?
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
So why don't we contact you with our individual
Okay.
thoughts?
Great.
What I like to do in one or more of the sessions forthcoming is have Steve Matheson join us. My current thinking, and I've said it before, I'm not tied to the 14 million on the fund balance. I think we have room there, and I think we have greater room. Clearly, the 8 million the deficit has to come down. But my current thinking is for some of the non-recurring costs, particularly capital, to be able to go into the fund balance, even if we exceed the 14 million, and try to reserve our taxing authority for the more recurring. And by that I mean wages, which we're still waiting on HR.
Right. Now, have you been contacted by our HR director on timing of her study?
Mid-June.
She told me that she would come forward in the elected officials meeting and talk about where she's at with her work.
Okay.
And I'll be working with her to put together and update this projection here.
And apparently, the figure that I heard for average, let's call it underpayment, is 8%. Not the 10 to 17 range that we previously thought.
So this particular number is just an estimate, and it's based on 2% of everyone.
Yes.
We're currently working with the sheriff's office for all the matrix steps as they exist now.
Okay.
Something else to think about as well, we have open positions. We can look at open positions again and partially funding those. That might be a way to do some stuff there, or freezing some positions that have been open for a long period of time. We also need to talk about the matrix in general, because last year we took the top of the matrix and added 2%. So we are outside of matrix. Basically, we're off the chart on the matrix. So there might be a matrix fix that might be built into what our HR director is working on. So there are some things coming up. It's going to be complex, but we have the right people in the room to do it.
I think so.
So I'm confident. I think we've made tremendous progress, and I want to applaud everyone here. It's been a really great working give and take. I think historically this is, from what I've seen since I've been here, I think this is the best we've done with the sheriff's office, and I appreciate the sheriff's office being forthcoming and willing to negotiate, and I think it's really helped a lot.
And I think I can speak freely for the board. We appreciate everybody's cooperation. We genuinely do. For me, this is my third pass, by far the smoothest and fastest. We still have a way to go, but we'll get there.
If I can comment on the matrix work, I met with Sylvia about 10 days ago and explained to her the matrix. She needed the history of it and how it came to be. And I explained to her the problem that going outside the matrix for those people who are topped out in it caused for us, because it without moving the matrix, the people who were topped out as of September 30 got 2% above that. But if your anniversary date was October 1, now you're working shoulder to shoulder with the person who was hired the day before you, and they're making 2% more than you are. And that's not right. Yeah, literally 1 or 2 days could make the difference in a 2% pay difference, and that's not right. And so she's well aware of that, and I said, we need to get this fixed. And she was a little shocked that that's how it occurred, to either move the whole thing or expand the whole step, but not the way it was. So she's well aware of that.
Also keep in mind too, this, the employer's portion of the health insurance increase, some of that will be borne by solid waste, so I can work on that calculation before our next meeting. Also, Alliant will be coming in middle of the month and will be giving us an update. So we'll get a clearer picture of what the costs are gonna be. Right now, we're looking at 16%. They're looking at some other options of reducing this cost to the employer based on the strategies that they discussed in their last presentation.
How did we treat that thus far? Is that part of our 8 mil?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so
the
we
the
didn't-
full
okay,
cost of the
okay.
employer, based on their estimate as of 5/23, that's when they visited us last. So
Which
I
was
plugged-
about
I
18%.
plugged in their estimate, actually I have this here. So this is what we're looking at for health insurance, this is a big driver. So, there it is in total.
Jeez.
And like they were saying too, a lot of it's just growth in employees. It's not just costs, it's growth in employees. So as we grow as a county, we have more benefits to pay. So that's part of the driver, but they do have some good ideas that they're gonna come back with. So we're working closely with them. But for right now, I've just plugged in the number that they gave us, just for transparency's sake. That's what we're looking to whittle down through various strategies. So again, these numbers that are kind of in this kind of funny shape are all moving numbers. So, for example, this number, as we have current payroll changes, today we had a payroll change, that change will reduce this number because we downgraded a position that you approved. So all those payroll changes, positions that are being retired, all those things that are in process right now are gonna reduce this number without you doing anything. So that will help get this number down as well.
Commissioner, may I ask
Yes,
you?
please.
You know, on those, and I know there's not a ton of it in my office, but some of those people are paid out of dedicated funds, like there's people in 911, they're paid out of the dedicated
Right.
fund. Some of our waterways people who have benefits are paid out of the dedicated funds. That will certainly impact your medical costs as well, coming out of the general fund, so.
Right.
Not a huge amount, but just something to keep in mind. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, that's all I have.
Public comment? None? 2:42, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.